All cell phones, pages, and electronic devices used for communication should be silenced for the duration of the meeting. We'll have an invocation by Councilman Darren Guidry and a pledge of allegiance by Councilman Dirk Guidry. Please rise.
Dear God, please be with the council today as we deliberate the matters before you. Please help us make decisions to the best of our ability and in keeping with your teachings. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I call a meeting of Wednesday, September 9, 2020 to order. Can I have a roll call, Ms. LeConte, please?
Mr. Charles-Claire?
Here.
Mr. Navy? Mr. Harding? Mr. Michel? Mr. Amity? Ms. Domain? Mr. Darren Guidry? Mr. Babin? Mr. Dirk Guidry? Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum present.
Thank you, ma'am. Approve the minutes of the special council session held on August 12, 2020. Move Mr. Dirk Guidry. Second, Mr. Carl Harding. All in favor? Any opposition? Yeah. Approve the minutes of the regular session held on August 12, 2020. Move Mr. Darren Guidry. Second, Ms. Jessica Domingue. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Distribute the minutes of the regular council session held on September 1st, 2020. We've done that. Approve accounts payable list for 8/31/2020 and 9/8/2020. Move Mr. Dirk Guidry. Second, Mr. Carl Harding. All in favor? Any opposition? Show one abstention, Darren Guidry. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. General business. Legislative update by Senator Brett Allain regarding capital outlay projects. Senator Allain is unable to attend tonight's proceedings and rescheduled for 9/23/20. Item B, consider the introduction of an ordinance authorize the issuance of not exceeding $40 million public improvement bonds in one or more series as a parish of Terrebonne, state of Louisiana, prescribing the form, terms, and conditions of such bonds, providing for the refunding of certain outstanding bonds, and providing for other matters in connection therewith, and calling a public hearing on Wednesday, September 23rd, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. Mr. Darren Guidry. Okay, John Davies seconded, and Ms. Domingue.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is for Ms. Candace specifically. Can you explain what it is that we're doing here with this? Because I thought that we talked about these bonds a few weeks ago, so just some clarity.
Yes, ma'am, we did. So a couple of weeks ago, we adopted a resolution. And that resolution was allowing us to go to the State Bond Commission and do the application. We will go to State Bond Commission on September 17th for approval. So what this is doing is introducing the ordinance to actually allow us to issue these bonds. We have to hold it over for 2 weeks. You have to have the public hearing. So after a State Bond Commission approval, the next week this will be adopted after the public hearing, and it'll allow us to actually go and issue the bonds. Another thing is it's up to $40 million because we are refunding some other bonds. So it's not all new money of $40 million. We'll have about $20 million of new money. So once we actually do issue the bonds and get the money, we'll then have to come back to the council with a budget amendment to show how that money is going to be spent.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Domingue. Seeing no further lights, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Item C, proclaiming September 17th through 23rd as September 17th through 23rd, 2020 as Constitution Week in home of Terrebonne. Ms. Domingue.
Thank you. Sorry, I turned it off. A proclamation, whereas September 17th, 2020 marks the 233rd anniversary of signing the Constitution of the United States of America, September 17th being the date in 1787 that the Founding Fathers, the framers of our Constitution, completed their work at the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document in its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations will commemorate this occasion. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating September 17th through 23rd as Constitution Week in this great country, and whereas it is hereby requested that our Stars and Stripes, the flag of our nation, be flown in the downtown area of the city of Houma during this week to help celebrate this magnificent occasion, and whereas the Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government was informed that the Bayou Lafourche chapter of the National Society Daughters of American Revolution recently placed first in their state for Constitution scrapbook. Now therefore be it resolved that the Terrebonne Parish Council, on behalf of Parish President Gordy E. Dove, on behalf of the entire Terrebonne Parish Consolidated Government, and in conjunction with the Bayou Lafourche chapter of the National Society Daughters of American Revolution, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through 23rd, 2020 as Constitution Week in Houma, Terrebonne, and encourage citizens to reaffirm the ideals that the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, remembering that lost rights may never be regained. And it is signed by Parish President Gordy Dove and Council Chairman Steve Trosclair.
Thank you. Is anyone here to accept this? Seeing no one, we're gonna move on. Staff reports, update on drainage pump, generators, and other projects. Mr. Toots? Oh, I'm sorry. I checked it off already. Recognition of Hazard Mitigation Steering Committee members, Reggie Dupre, Jack Moore, Chad Hebert, Digger Kelly, Jay Walker, Ann Parr, Sherrill Parfait Dardar, Albert Knockin, Coco Capel, and Ronnie Shaw. Any one of these in the audience? See no one. Ms. Jennifer Jabasi, you want to speak?
Is this on?
Put your mic on.
Pardon? It was on. I was going to say,
Okay.
I'll just take a moment. Thank you. I'm Jennifer Gerbasi. Some of you haven't met me. I am the recovery planner in the planning department for the Recovery Assistance and Mitigation Planning Division. And we had these lovely certificates for our participants from the steering committee because the hazard mitigation plan is required by FEMA every 5 years. To be eligible for any of the FEMA funds after storms or yearly. And the parish has received or been selected for over $100 million from FEMA, so we're very interested in keeping a good relationship with them. And these professionals and members of the general public met for months in 2019. The plan that they developed was awarded in June 17th of this year, which made us again eligible for FEMA funds. And we just wanted to provide them with these certificates. Since they haven't come today, possibly due to health concerns, we will mail them to them. But we had engineers, bankers, law enforcement, teachers, housing specialists, levy district, tribal representative, council members, et cetera, at the meeting, deciding with the hazard mitigation plan what types of hazards we have, how to respond to them, and coming up with a consensus about how we should approach these from these members of the public. And we just appreciate their service. It took months and lots of reading and research, and we do appreciate them. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shabazz.
Thank you for your time.
See no lights. Okay, now Mr. Toots, staff reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you would refer to the pump reports presented to you. The first one, the Cavanagh's Drive at St. Louis Canal Road. This project was actually completed as of this afternoon. Energy ran the electricity to the meter. So this pump station is fully operable on both electricity and with the diesel backup. The Westview Drive at St. Louis Canal Road Pump Station project, Energy is scheduled to install the electricity to the meter this week. We have a new pump station on the report, the D4 Lashbrook Pump Station Replacement Project. We've received approval from administration to begin the bidding process. This pump station presently has 3 36-inch diesel pumps with telemetry only. The new pump station is going to consist of 2 48-inch diesel-operated pumps, 1 36-inch diesel pump. It'll be full SCADA, and the project calls for the alternatives of the automated trash rakes, which are estimated to be around $600,000, the possible upgrade of 1 36-inch pump to a 48-inch pump, estimated cost $90,000, and the last alternative would be to add a fourth 48-inch diesel pump, which would be an additional $278,000. That is providing the bids come in under budget. On D13 Industrial Boulevard, Norris and Boudreaux is continuing to work on the bulkhead. This is a sheet pile bulkhead from the new sump all the way along the access road to the old bar grade station. On D35 Gibson Recreation, the gearbox is still on order, and now it's a 4-week delivery. Not on the report, but I found out late this afternoon, the Texas Gulf Road Pump Station new sheet pile wall replacement project has been completed. All emergency generators have been checked and run as of yesterday, and that completes my pump and emergency generator report, unless anyone has any specific questions. Thank you.
Yes, we have a couple of lights. Mr. Darren Gidry.
Yeah, and I just wanted to announce that today they began the Savannah Road Phase 3 project, which is the levee that's going to go from the rifle range toward Bayou Black to where near the storage unit is, and then come back to Savannah Road, which will finally close off that system that goes all the way from 311 to that area and puts all that area under pump, so they're no longer vulnerable to the Chackahoola Basin. I was out there today. They were getting the excavators ready and preparing to begin that project. So that's a project finally underway. So I wanted to thank Mr. Dove and everybody for getting that project going. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dove? Okay, Mr. Dirk Gidry.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody that had anything to do with this putting in this new Lashbrook pump station. It's a pump station that's probably should have been changed out 15, 20 years ago. I know Mr. Dove was on there for one storm where we all had to evacuate because the whole pump station was just about getting ready to fall in. This will make every pump station in District 7, Council District 8 brand new. No, I ain't giving you credit, Danny. But most of all, I'd like to thank Gordy for getting that done. And while this last storm was coming upon us, the drainage department did an outstanding job by being there and changing out a pump at that Lashbrook pump station that was in dire need to be done in case this storm would have came. And also at the last second, they were hurrying up and installing this 42-inch pump at Industrial Pump Station. The drainage department, forced drainage and gravity drainage, did an outstanding job for this storm. If you'd have seen wherever you went, they were there trying to correct problems, fix problems, or get problems before they even occurred. So my hat goes out to everybody in the drainage department, Mr. Dove, the levee board district, everybody that had anything to do with this storm, they were there doing it. The coordination is getting better and better for all our lock systems and our levee systems. You know, when we started putting all these lock systems and levee and drainage pumps, there was no manual on how to do this. And for the last few storms we've had, and thank God there wasn't major storms, but we've had practice at it, and we're learning how to do this. So now, the levee board and the parish, we can write the manual on how to do this now. It's amazing if everybody would see how good a job these levees and pump systems are doing. You know, we didn't get too much from this last little storm that hit Lake Charles, and God bless their souls over there, but if we wouldn't have, and people say, you know, there should be no levee systems. We shouldn't have it. There's naysayers, you know. There's people that said that we knocked down levees in Montague, which is a crock of bull, you know what I mean? But if we wouldn't have these levee systems that we have today, the town of Chauvin, the town of Montague, the town of Grand Caille, the town of Bayou-du-Large would have had water in homes. So we went from, a couple of years ago, from the same amount of water, having 11,000 homes flood in Terrebonne Parish. This time we had 0 people. This is the greatest improvement you could ever have, you know. We should be proud for what we did, the levee did, board did, the parish did, but most of all, we need to be proud of what the taxpayers of Terrebonne Parish did. They came up and they gave a 1/4-cent sales tax to help build the Bubba Duff to stop water coming from up the ship channel. Then, you know, they saw that we did such a great job. They came and they voted a 1/2-cent sales tax that passed by 80% in Terrebonne Parish, 81% in Chauvin now, but, you know, that's unheard of for a tax to pass by 80%. And, you know, there's nobody that can come around here and say that these drainage systems that we've been busting our butts doing for the last 12 to 15 years are not working. Because, you know, it ticks me off when I hear that we're knocking down levees and so the levee board can collect more money, this and that. Now, this eats at my craw, because let me tell you, the people that have something to do with this, they take this personal, and I take it personal, because without these levee systems and pump systems that we have, we would have had people that would have been homeless. We would have had people that had water in their houses. We'd have had business owners that had water in their businesses. You know what? The next day after these storms passes, people went back to cutting their grass. I've had people come from Cocodrie that got camps in Cocodrie and down below Robinson Canals saying, thank you, man, y'all doing a great job, you know? So it means a lot to me for what we've accomplished in such a short time, and for people, for the naysayers. There are naysayers, and they're gonna be negative about whatever comes around because they don't want it done. But let me tell you, we did a good job. Thanks for this council. Thanks to the previous councils. Thanks to the levee boards. Thanks to the state. Thanks to CPRA. Thanks to everybody that had the foresight to come and help us build levees. And I hope we're not finished. I'd like to see all our Morganza levees to 18 foot high. Everybody have parish levees to 12 foot high. So I'm gonna get off my little bandwagon, but let me tell y'all, thank y'all for everybody that had something to do with this. And for the naysayers, come see me personally, and I got something to tell you personally what I can't say it on the mic. Thank you.
Ms. Domingue.
It's hard to follow that one up. Mr. Tubes, I had an interesting phone call from one of my constituents this week, and I just want to ask, just in case that his particular constituent's watching the meeting tonight, and his question regarding the pump at Cavaness and the pump at Westview, he wanted to know specifically why they were 12-inch pipes and not 30-inch. And so could you maybe clarify that for me and for the people of Lisa Park?
Very simple. It's because we had two 12-inch and one 30-inch pump available, and that's what we put in.
Okay, so simple as that, huh?
Simple as that.
So that whenever the people of that neighborhood come to me and they say that it's not going to be enough capacity, is it going to be enough capacity?
Well, Councilperson Domingue, you got to remember that this area is a naturally gravity drained area, and by adding these three pumps, we're just assisting with the natural gravity flow, which leads into the William Street pump station. So by adding these pumps, we're assisting with the gravity flow of that whole area. And to, if I can, while I'm speaking, I can remember 2 years ago, Councilman Guidry coming up in Gordy Dove's office and crawling up one side of my butt and down the other side of Carl Day's butt about pumps in his district. So it was very, very heartening to hear that comment. So on behalf of administration and our entire drainage department, I thank you for those comments, Mr. Guidry.
And thank you, Mr. Toops, and I just want to let the people of Lisa Park know that I did drive through the neighborhood after the last big rain event that we had, and there was no water in the streets, not from what I could see. And so from what I saw, those pumps were working, so thank you, sir.
Well, you got to remember too that you guys approved the purchase of these pumps, and so we had them, they were available, and so that's why we decided to put them into operation. So thank you.
Mr. Dove?
Yeah, but to add to that, it's not the only reason we use 12-inch pumps. Because of the feed into that sump area, you can't put anything bigger than a 12-inch pump. Or if you pass by there, you're gonna see how small the ditches are coming into that area. And 12 inches is maximum of what you can put there on both Cavernous and Westview. Now, when we get to the 30-inch pump, we're putting that right to the north of West Side, and you're gonna see a ditch, a conveyance ditch, going to St. Louis Canal Road. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna go ahead and widen this, because if you use a 30-inch pump, you really need a lot larger reservoir than where these 12-inch pumps are. But what we've been doing with these 30 inches, we put a variable frequency on them, which is variable speed, so they can act as a 12-inch, a 24-inch, or a 30-inch pump, so to help pump the Alma Street and Lisa Park out. And so that sump is completed. They're fixing to sandblast it. It's the same size pump that we put at South Ellendale, and it's going to really help that area. Now, another thing, we're waiting on the Corps of Engineers to approve the lowering of the seal elevation on the 11B system. There was no objections to our first input by Morris P. Hebert when they submitted all the documents and all the backups, and the Corps did approve the datum changes in that area. Then we had to go for a seal change. Seal meaning the elevation that we can pump down the system. There was, great news. There was no objections from any federal agencies. So now we're moving to where we can lower St. Louis Canal. Our goal is to lower it 7 to 10 inches because you've had about an 18-inch datum change in that area. So we're waiting on that, but we will always keep those pumps because, as Mike said earlier, that's booster pumps, and it helps drain that area. And on another note, the Lashbrook Pump Station, to reiterate what Dirk just said, we're going to upgrade that 36-inch pump to 48-inch, and that one 48-inch diesel pump, me and Candace met today, and we have the funding, I believe, for it. So we will have, at the end of the day, 4 48-inch pumps on the Lashbrook Pump Station, which is probably a little more than they needed, but if we learn one thing, and Dirk can tell you the same thing, and most of the council members can, we try to overbuild these pump stations when you do get the 10, 12, 15, 20-inch rains in. So that's a great project. That Lashbrook has been under engineering, and the state gave us to go ahead to move forward with it, and that's a great project. And with that, we're going to go to bid. We should accept the bids October the 6th, and of course we'll move the construction before the end of the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dove. Mr. Danny Babin.
Yeah, projects that are getting started, as Mike said last week, the Industrial Boulevard Bridge replacement has started. They started doing the bypass bridge. Normally, if a bridge may be out of service, but there's no way to shut down Industrial Boulevard because it services Chabot Memorial Hospital. So that's a project that I know we talked about last week about striping on that road. It's going to slow the traffic down for a while they're redoing that bridge, and it detours around, and then after it's completed, then the road is going to be striped because that's part of the project. Also, it enhances, everything is going to enhance that industrial pump that's right there, that's pumping out Councilman Guidry's area in District 8, okay? Also, as just to kind of piggyback a little bit off of what Mr. Guidry said just a minute ago, you know, those of us that are fortunate enough to represent the Baja areas, you know, something is better than nothing. And what we have now is a greater level of protection than we ever had before with the levee system from Terrebonne Parish and the levee district. And you're right, Dirk, the people of Terrebonne Parish put on their boots and paid for this. And it's important. But you have to remember, even the people in the northern part of the parish, like John Amadei, without those levees, there's a lot of these districts that would be flooded right now. Those 11,000 homes that were flooded in the last storms were not only flooded down the Baja, they were flooded in areas. I mean, I forget the names of the storms because we had so many of them, but we had water all the way to Main Street on the east side. And that shuts down the entire corridor of Thompson Road, all the industrial areas. So people need to realize that what we have may not be perfect, but it's a lot better than what we had before. And the levee board, on their levees, continue to raise the levees. And like you said, we hope to have them all at 18 feet. The parish is building all and redoing interim levees to give us more reservoir capacity. It's a massive system that, as Dirk said, did not come with a manual, but it's working really, really good. And all you have to do is drive down the Baja during the storm or right before a storm or right after, and you can see how dry you are on one side and how wet it is on the other. So kudos to the parish for that, the pump system, and the levee board for all the good work that they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Darren Guidry.
Yeah, and thank you, Dirk, for your comments. I just want to echo those. What a lot of people don't realize is 12 years ago, when I first got on the levee board, that was before the real construction began. And in our first meeting, we looked at the money that we had. We didn't have enough money to do a bunch of projects, but we had enough money to start a bunch of projects. And we on the levee board made a conscious decision that, you know, we had faith in the people, faith in our delegation, that if we started to build it, if they didn't want to see money in the bank, they wanted to see dirt on the ground. So we began to construct projects. And we had some people tell us we were crazy because we didn't have enough money to do all the projects. And we said we're going to do the projects as much as we can, and when we run out of money, we'll drop the shovels and say we're out of money. But we never ran out of money. And because we started all those projects at once, at that particular time, concurrently, when the money came, guess what? We were shovel ready. And we have a system today because of that decision to start. And, it's a system I think we all can be proud of. And the people in voting the tax to help support what the levee district was doing in building those levees and seeing that dirt and trusting, look, I'm seeing something happen, I'm gonna fund the rest of it. We now have protection as a result of that. And so, I want to thank all the fellow levee board members who served with me at the time for making that decision, and the levee board today for continuing to keep that going. I think that was very important, and thanks to the taxpayers and the people here. Don't think that doesn't go unrecognized when we're trying to get state funding and federal funding. They see that we are ponying up. That helps us get funding. And so you don't realize how much that sales tax has meant to us having levee protection here in Terrebonne Parish. So thank you all.
Mr. Cole Harding.
Yes, it seems as if that all the great work that's being done in Terrebonne Parish, and I'm appreciative to everyone that was involved. It's great stories coming from Chauvin, Dulage, and Pontchartrain and Montague in those areas. But I spoke with a lady today that was just concerned about water in her house in her neighborhood. And I've been working with Mr. Dove and Mr. Rome, and then there were some things on board. And I just want to know those people that are out there in District 2. I'm not a politician. I'm representing y'all. I'm a representative. And that lady that I won't call her name today, I'm still working on the project for her and some of the people down in Gibson. There was some improvement that we have coming. Those people that are on Turner Extension, looking forward to having the same stories that you guys are having in your district. I would greatly appreciate the same assistance from the people of Terrebonne Parish when the time comes for the people in District 2. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy. Mr. Dirk Gidry.
Yeah, Mr. Corley, it doesn't matter if it's down the bayou, up the bayou, or in the city limits of Houma. If you need help with a flooding problem, you call me. I'll be the first one to help you because I know what it is to have water in a home and a business. But besides that, I'd like to say that also that the lock system at Boudreaux Canal is complete. It's a beautiful thing. I think maybe probably the next week or the week after, Mr. Dove and myself and a couple of people, we got COVID going on, but we're gonna have a ribbon cutting ceremony. Not no great big deal, just a little bitty ribbon or whatever. But through all this, there's one person that I'd like to really thank too that's helped out a whole lot, and that was Sheriff Tim Saunier. Tim Saunier and his gang have did what you call an outstanding job protecting the people's properties from down the bayous. I've never seen so many police officers running up and down these bayous, checking to make sure there's no looters or damage to people's properties. Right after they opened the floodgate, the roller gate going down the Cocodrie, there was a suspicious vehicle that was riding around. And I gave Tim Saunier a phone call, and within an hour and a half, we had him arrested and being going to jail because we didn't pick him up for looting, but we knew that's what he was after, but we picked him up on the various charges, a lot of charges. So my heart goes out to him because he did a great job. No matter what time I went down to the floodgates at Cocodrie, him and his people were there. So, and I rode around with Reggie, and I mean, he does an outstanding job. So thanks to Sheriff Saunier and all his people that were out there. I don't want to just not say nothing about them, but they did an outstanding job also. Thank you.
I don't think we need to, Gerald. There's no cards, so we'll just, okay. Mr. Dove.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate back what Mr. Corley was saying, and just to tell the public, you know, Gibson, Bob Black, we are completing 19 miles of levees, as Mr. Corley has been on the levees with me, and we are operating the Hanson Canal pump station. We should be finished with it in about 4 or 5 weeks, but it has brought down the Chacahula Basin down to 0 elevation. Remember, the 0 above sea level. The Chacahula Basin has been as much as 4 and 5 feet above sea level, flooding the people of Gibson, Chacahula, Donna, and not only that, Ardoyne on 311, and before we built the Valhalla levee system all the way to Sugarwood, the lakes, and all those areas. But the pump system has proven very, very successful, and we are, as you're going to see as we progress, we are building another $14 million pump station on Elliott Jones. We're acquiring the land rights. We're very, very close to it with getting the rest of the land rights, and the monies will, $10 million will come out of the state, and about a total of $3.5 million from Terrebonne Parish. So like I said, the residents of Gibson and Bob Black, Donna, Deadwood, of course, I don't have to tell you if you live there. If you go out your back door and go back there, you'll see how far the water has receded. One guy called me the other day, and he asked me to quit using the pump so much because his duck pond doesn't have any water in it. I said, well, it's not supposed to have water because it's too high, but that just shows you how much water we're pumping out of that system. And it's really, really been successful, and we're staying at least a foot below the elevation of the intercoastal. So you're going to see a new life, and a great new life, into the Chacahula, Gibson, Bob Black area, and Donna. This is a really, really successful system, and we're going to just keep moving it forward. But Mr. Corley is 100% right. Besides down the bayou, there's a lot going on north of the intercoastal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Devlin. Mr. Michelle, I don't have any speaker cards for public, so we can move on. The only speaker cards I have are for later on in the agenda. So, since no public wishing to address the council cards, 6:30 public hearings. Item A is consider the introduction of an ordinance to revise certain portions of Chapter 6, Article 6 of the Terrebonne Parish Code of Ordinances pertaining to small cell wireless facilities in response to discussion and concerns from administration, council, and the general public, ranging from the public notification, aesthetics, and health concerns. Public once, public twice, public 3 times.
Motion to close public?
Motion to close public, Mr. Michel. Second, Mr. Danny Babin. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Mr. Michel, you want to speak before we?
Yes,
Mr.
please. First of all, thank y'all for holding this over from last week. Just a little bit of background. About a year ago, the last council voted on the ordinance for the small cell towers. And after doing that, and we probably shouldn't have, because there were a lot of unanswered questions, a lot of concerns that were not addressed, and I say we probably shouldn't have. I'm pointing the finger at myself as well. And so as a result, the public had an outcry, and we needed to revisit it. It's my understanding that we got a consultant involved, and so now we have an ordinance before us, and I do not want the same thing to happen that happened last year to happen this year. So I went through it rather in a detailed manner, and I would like to ask some questions. And if you so choose, you can follow along. I'm on page 2 of the backup, and at the top of the page it says section 6-175 purpose and intent, just as a reference point. I'll give y'all a second if y'all want it. And I'm going to go through what I saw in this document, and anybody obviously on the council who wants to speak about it can certainly do that, but I'm mostly addressing the questions to Mr. Pulaski so he can give us some feedback. So on the page, just numbered page 2 at the bottom of the page, my first question is, in other parts of the document, they talk about a very specific map, a very specific layout of where they want these things, but they don't seem to refer to that here. And in one other place, they talked about a general location. When they first put in an application, are they going to have to, number one, provide us with exact locations of where they want these things? And number two, and probably more importantly, because that's what's unclear on the document, are they going to have to provide the public with that information in advance of the application?
The answer is yes. They will, whether they choose to do a group of new sites, which would fall into the definition of a facility cluster, or if they want to do individually, one at a time, they have to give us the specific locations of each proposed new facility, because part of the next definition at the very bottom of the page, the community notice verification, is some type of notice needs to be sent out, which is further explained later on, but a notice needs to be sent out to every property owner within 250 feet of each location of each new facility.
Okay, but if you look on page 4, under 6-177, item C, number 1, letter B, it says an area, and this is relating to what's needed for the C and V. It says an area plan and map showing general locations. Why wouldn't it be specific locations there as well?
Well, reviewing the item B says present a preliminary area plan and map of proposed facility locations.
No, further down, item C, and then under that, number 1, and then under that B.
Oh, okay. An area plan and map showing general locations of proposed facilities. I mean, we could adjust that language to be, specific. I mean, that's the intent, is, you know, we want to know, where is it? Is it here or here? We're not interested in that. We want to know, is it here, not somewhere between here and here, but is it here or is it here?
And that's good. So, I mean, is there any problem with making a minor change like that, since we're at public hearing?
No, I think it relates to
How
it.
about
I
we
mean,
just strike the word general?
all right, I mean, Chris and I worked on this, went over it many times, and I think we can make that motion and do it as.
Okay, all right, well, let's go through the list. So, that's,
I'll just keep a running tab, and then when.
okay, you got it? You're gonna
And-
write it
and
down?
then-
Okay, all right, let's
For
move.
example, at the end, you, motion to approve as per my
Right.
requested.
Okay, so you have that item written down?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good, thank you. Back to page 2. There's a typo. You see where the red type is at the bottom, there's 2 paragraphs. The last line, the third line of that top paragraph under application facility cluster, et cetera, there's a typo in the last line. It says 2 facility clusters per applicant provider may in the permit process. I'm sure it must be, may be in the permit process at any given time.
I'm sorry, where is that? What page?
Page 2.
Okay.
Chris, it's under the definitions. Let's, if we follow the document,
Yeah.
it's section 6-176 definitions under applications, and it's the last, it's under application and definition, and it's got per applicant provider may in the permit process at any time. Mr. Michelle is saying.
It's just a
that
typo. It's a
It needs
word
to
missing.
put may be in the.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and probably the biggest problem I have is something that you just referred to, Mr. Pulaski, and that is the 250 feet. 250 feet is, I mean, in my subdivision where the houses are close together, if somebody lives, 5 or 6 houses away from me, they're further than 250 feet. If they're gonna put some, that doesn't seem to be large enough.
Well, we, like with many ordinances, we look to what other communities have. And to tell you, we've seen everything from 250 as high as 1,500. Now, 250 feet is what we use in Board of Adjustment. That's what is required for notifying special exceptions or variance requests that go before the Board of Adjustment. Special exceptions, for example, to place a macro tower in a zoned area that have to go to the Board of Adjustment. That's a 250-foot notification mark. But rezoning here in Terrebonne Parish, it's a 300-foot mark. So we didn't want to just kind of pick something at random and not really have a solid justification for having that, which is why we settled on the 250, because it's kind of coincides with the special exception for the macro tower.
Okay.
But we could consider
I would like
increasing
to,
that.
I would like to see it at 1,000 feet. I don't think that's too much to ask. It's not, the front of my lot is 75 feet wide, so 250 feet is just a few houses away. It's nothing. And I mean, we're asking for a whole lot more than that to get approval to put speed humps. And I think this is gonna come with a whole lot more, concerns on the part of the public.
Mr. Pulaski and I looked at this, well, let me back up. We were one of the first areas that actually provided ordinances in this area. A lot of communities have come since, and a lot of people know a lot more about this. And so our ordinance, we made some tweaks to it. We looked at came up with some of our own ideas and looked at many communities. I think when you start going out 1,000 feet, if you're in a big rural area where you're gonna have estate to estate, you can go 1,500 feet. But when you're in urban areas, to notify everybody within 1,000 feet could require a lot of work. I mean, you're talking about 1,000 feet north, south, east, and west. And you know, we have to be very careful because this is all regulated by the FCC. FCC, if they think that you're doing things to prevent them, you could wind up into some issues. So, like I said, between me, Chris, I don't know if the consultant addressed that, but he was more in aesthetics. And what we looked at, 250 feet in accordance with staying consistent what we're doing with other matters in our code, we thought was sufficient.
Okay. And I just think it's not. Maybe there's a number smaller than 1,000, but I think 250 is ridiculously a small number. So anyway, but let's move on. That's probably the only thing that's, and I'm presuming this, that's probably the only thing that's a deal breaker for me in this document. Everything else, I think, needs to be addressed and is important, but the 250 feet, I think, is unacceptable. Okay.
Well, how far you want it, Gerald?
Well, you know.
I mean, just, Gerald, you got to balance.
No, I understand.
That, in other words, in the subdivisions, you start you start putting a lot of distance in feet, you putting, that's an awesome task on the people that's got to do it.
You know what, there's a 600, and I'm gonna let you talk, Chris, but there's a 600-foot distance between the two towers. Why not do a 600-foot notification?
The distance between the towers could vary.
Sure, but I think that's the minimum distance, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But
Now, I was going to suggest, because you make a good point, that in some areas, 1,000 feet may only mean 4 properties. In some areas, 1,000 feet may mean 400 properties. We do have the ability to designate between the urbanized areas of the parish, which is essentially the zoned areas of the parish, and then those areas outside of that. So perhaps what we could do is have, if you're outside of the urbanized area, it could be 1,000 feet, or it could be 1,500 feet. And then within the urbanized planning area, we could make it either the 250 or some other number, but we could make that distinction between the two. We do have some subdivisions that are outside of that urbanized planning area. Of course we do, but not as many as we do in the urbanized planning areas. I mean, we see it all the time with Board of Adjustments. I mean,
just a thought, is there any way to say a minimum number of notifications? I guess that's going to get ugly.
You're going to miss
Okay.
somebody.
All right, well, let's leave that alone.
Okay, let me ask you, 300 feet, is that good?
I mean, I'd like it to be, I would like it to be 1,000, but I would settle for 500. I think it's got to be at least 500.
Chris?
I mean, I don't think 500 is going to be 100.
We saw other
100
jurisdictions that had more than that. I think we could stand behind it. I kind of like having a number that we already have.
Well, I'd say we stay with one number though, instead of breaking it up. I mean, that's just my recommendation. I don't have, you want to do 500, Chris, as long as it don't put a heavy burden on your staff, and you can.
But it's not even your staff that does it.
Well, no, they have to do it, but if it comes back and they don't have somebody there, then you got to worry about, well, do you have to go back and canvass that area? I mean, when you start thinking these things through, it comes with some practical responsibilities, and so I think as you want to do, let's just do 500. Is that what you want, Gerald? 500?
Yes.
Well, let's change it to 500.
On what merit?
Huh?
On what merit? What's the reason when you do that? I'm trying to figure out why are we doing that?
Well, I mean, we looked at it and we thought it out, and we thought 250 was sufficient. I mean, if Mr. Michel is recommending 500, the council has not voted on it, and maybe we ought to hear from other councilmen. They may not want it 500.
That's my point.
Okay, so do we want to discuss this issue before we go on, or do we want to just?
Yeah, I think if we're gonna do item for item, let's do.
Well, I would suggest let Mr. Michel go through it and give his complaints and what he would like to see, and then if anybody else has anything, they can chime in, and then if y'all want to vote on it as it is without, I would say correct the B, and I don't have a problem with the special, But I mean, if y'all wanna leave it as it is, that would be up to your vote.
Okay, and just for the record, these are not complaints, they're concerns, and I think y'all did a great job on this, just for the record, okay? But I do have the concerns. The next item, is on page 3. Can you explain the 28 cubic feet thing? I understand that it's that it's either a literal measure if it's something that's boxed in, or it's an imaginary measurement if it's something that's not boxed in. But
That's, Chris, that's on page 3, that's under the definition of small wireless. And as I recall, Mr. Michel, that's a definition that is required by regulation. That's what they could, Chris, you see the definition?
Yes, yes.
You remember that, that's in the F. In other words, Mr. Michel, the way you differentiate, the FCC differentiates, between something that they consider small cell and something they consider not to be small cell is by these definitions. And
Okay.
as I recall, that was taken right out, as I recall, that was taken out, I don't have the regulations in front of me, but that was put in from the regulation.
the last sentence says, the following types of associated ancillary equipment are not included in that calculation, and they include electric meter, concealment elements, telecommunication, a demarcation box, ground-based enclosures, ground equipment, power transfer switch, cutoff switch, and vertical cables run the connection of the power, and other services. What are the and other services?
Well, those are, as I recall, again, something, Mr. Michel, I would just ask in the future on something that's technical, that in the future, if you don't mind addressing this with staff before a meeting, because we could better answer your questions when we got our weapons available, that is the statutes and the regs, we can go back and look. I mean, this is highly technical detail.
Well, I just got this last week, so.
Well, I realize that, but I'm saying is, we basically scouring a legal document in a public meeting, and I think we could have better help you
Okay,
if
well,
you'd ask us this in the future and call us. But in any event, other services would it would mean things needed to implement the small cell facility. Okay, I can't address, I'm not an electrical engineer, and I can't address each item, but it's there so that it helps achieve the end result.
Okay, and the next paragraph refers to it being designed in a manner that is visually as unobtrusive as possible. I'm not quite sure, how that's defined.
Is that under stealth? Which one?
Stealth.
Yeah, under the stealth.
Stealth design. Well, unobtrusively,
I mean, I know what it means, I just don't know how it's judged.
well, it's judged because if you go further in the design, we have some more detail in the design. What we did was we came up with a design, basically a design manual. Okay, so if you go into the design manual, we give some parameters, because you can't be arbitrary, and you have to give, in other words, if this gets judged, and was to be judged by a judge, you can't be arbitrary, so we gave some parameters on design.
Okay,
And when
on
you say
page-
obtrusive, I mean, it speaks for itself. I think you
Well,
understand what the word means.
On page 4, section 6-177, applicants are encouraged but not required to schedule a pre-app meeting with the Department of Planning and Zoning. Why are they not required? Is there a reason for that?
Because that's up to them. We can't, that's up to them if they want to have a pre-application meeting. I mean, we can't force them to have a pre-application. One of the things you can't, you remember we looked at that by law, you can't force somebody to have as I recall when we looked at it, you can't force them to have a pre-application meeting. You can encourage them and ask them to do it, but you can't force them. Okay, as I recall.
Now, not
Correct,
having
I'm
the
wrong, Chris.
pre-application meeting doesn't mean that they still don't have to do all of the processes like the public notice
Right.
to property owners within the prescribed area. But in addition to it being that we cannot, by law, we cannot require them to do it, but also, just from a time standpoint, a lot of these providers, we would anticipate that we're going to have, like we had with AT&T, so far they're the only ones, but they have their contractors come into the area to apply for it. So after 30-plus applications, they're going to know what they're required to do. So I'm not sure that the pre-application meeting is really going to be that worth anyone's time.
Well, we hope, you can't force them to do it because the law allows them to file an application and there's a shot clock. In other words, it's so much time. So if they don't want to meet with you, you can't force them. However, we are looked at, I think we looked pretty much nationwide. And Chris, we looked at a lot of different things and had some good ideas. We encourage the applicants who are going to come in and sit down with our planning department and show them before we would like that, so that we can all be on the same page, so everything runs smooth. It would be advantageous to them and advantageous to our planning department.
Okay, on page 5, under new facility or new facility cluster, item G, where it starts off, if the proposed wireless facility is to be placed on parish property, the application must include, 1, a letter of no objection from the parish, 2, a fully executed standard right-of-way use agreement available on Form 2 of Appendix C standards forms. Okay, what it's not including here, and then this was an issue at Plantation Estates. Is it Plantation Estates? Southern States, okay? Is they put that, if I'm recalling correctly, they put that pole up and then nobody would let them run through their yard to go get power in the back of the property.
That wasn't us. That was the private landowner. We had no control over that.
No.
Because the utility companies, when they're building the subdivisions, they go place the boxes to the rear of the property line. So the private landowners, they put these poles on about a street in the front, but the utility boxes are being run in the back, and I guess why the developers want that is they don't want those boxes to show when they develop them. So they, instead of having, like you've seen in some of the subdivisions, utility boxes, well, over the years I've seen them, they started putting them like on the front, then they started putting them underground. Now I'm seeing them being put in the back.
So my question is, do we not need to have them provide us with documentation from the homeowner that says that they'll be able to attach to that in that situation?
No, because if the homeowner don't give them the right of way, they can't go through it. I mean, we have no control over what the homeowner does.
Okay, but then,
I mean, it's part of the application process. If they come in there and they get an application, we approve it as far as what we are concerned of, and the homeowner let them run the line, and it's not going to go up.
well, I mean, that one went up.
Well, it went up, but without a source of energy to power
Right,
it.
and then that's a
So, I
problem.
mean, so it came down.
And again, I just think that we need to try to stop that from happening in advance if we can, but we'll,
I mean, I think one thing that the pre-application meeting, for those who elect to have one, we would have with us on hand is the subdivision plat. So when they show us each location, experience is the best teacher. So we're going to know, well, you do know that in this subdivision, the electrical is not running in a nice 6-foot servitude within the public right-of-way. It's in the back. So what's your plan to get your power to that location?
A suggestion, Chris, I know you were gonna come up with, and you got a form that you were gonna give the applicants.
Yeah, a
And
checklist.
again, to compromise, and for what Mr. Michel's saying, is why don't you add that on the list? Are you planning, or your sources of energy to power your system are going to need other private landowners' rights, and have you acquired those? We can do
yeah,
that.
that's
now.
great.
Is that okay?
That's wonderful, yes.
There you go.
And hopefully that's gonna help y'all. I'm not just bringing it
No,
up.
No, I mean, that's a
Okay.
point.
That would have
All right.
saved a lot of phone calls.
Okay, page
No, that's a point
8,
well taken.
at the top of the page, section C, abandonment of facilities,
No, which page you on, John?
page 8.
8.
At the top of the page, C. The wireless provider shall notify the parish in writing within 90 days of abandonment. Following receipt of such notice, the parish may direct the wireless provider to remove any and all portion of the wireless and support structure if the parish or its departments determines such removal is in the best interest of public health, safety, and welfare. I think we either need to add aesthetics to that, or add, if there's no need for it, I don't think we need to leave it up. Now, there may be a need for it, and it needs to stay up even if they're abandoning it, but if there's no need for it, I don't think we need to leave something.
Well, that would fall, I mean, I think that's written appropriately, Mr. Michel. Just so the record's clear, he's talking about section 6-180, removal, relocation, or abandonment of wireless facilities. I got a feeling that if it comes in, we're gonna say that it's not safe, and just to leave a facility there, and if it's no longer being used, and if you note, we have in there that if they do leave it, they gotta continue to pay. So, I think that is sufficiently written. That's
Okay,
just my
and
opinion.
I'm good with that. It's just, I just don't want to see stuff abandoned and left there.
No, I mean, it's a
So-
point well taken, and we considered all that. I just
Okay.
think that, if they've abandoned it, we're gonna go
Well-
remove it, and if you notice the last sentence, we're gonna go remove it if they abandon it, if we want, and any cost is gonna be charged to them to remove it. So I think we got it covered.
And, there may be a scenario where, okay, well, one provider may abandon that facility, but another
Right.
provider may want it.
Or may still be using it, it may be
So
cold.
that's one less
Sure.
pole that gets put up.
Okay, halfway down that same page on the annual fees, where'd y'all get those numbers from, if I may ask? The 270 and 170?
That was just kind of looking at what some other jurisdictions have put together. I mean,
Well, they cap you at a certain amount, which you can do, which I think we're doing the max, right? Aren't we? Or we, no, we're not, we could, on the application, we were doing, I thought we were doing the max.
for the, no, the fee, he's talking about the annual fees for the placement of the pole in our public right-of-way. The 270 or the 170.
Well, that's something you'd come up with. I mean, we had discussions on that.
I mean, is it too late to go higher than that? Because it's my understanding from talking to people who know a lot more than I do about it, that that's extremely low.
And who's advising you on that?
Some people that I talked to. I'm not gonna give their name in public. I don't have a right to do that.
Well, I mean,
Well,
but how do I know who they are if they know that, it's kind of like the person who called Jessica about the pumps. I mean, I don't know who they are. If it's somebody that really knows something, then maybe we need to listen. But Chris had come up with these numbers.
Well, and, what we could look into that, but just from a procedural standpoint, the adjusting of those fees was not part of the proposed revisions that we presented. And it's my understanding that the holdover period for fee adjustments is a minimum of 30 days.
That is correct.
So my suggestion, as it relates to those fees, I certainly don't mind going back and revisiting those numbers.
Let's do
But
it later.
I would hate to
No, I understand.
push
Let's-
this all
we-
out another
no,
30 days
We
for
can do
that.
it, we can do it later, but I think we need to do it. Now, is there anything that's, and that was my other question, is there anything that's stopping us from increasing those fees down the road, contractually with the people who have permits already, or who are already?
No, they have an agreement with it as is for that
What
amount.
they're being charged is what they would be charged until it become new. The FCC does have some restrictions on charges. And, Chris had set these numbers, and way back, I definitely would say you cannot change the numbers tonight.
Well, I don't want to necessarily change
mean,
them
if
tonight,
you-
but
if you-
Chris, can you and I talk about this, those fees at another time?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, on page 9, under section 6-183B, it says homeowners permitting construction on home sites of which they reside shall be exempt from the setback requirements. Do we need to add a statement in there saying the setback requirement only to their home? Because if I put one in my yard, and so I'm exempt from the setback requirement, and I put this 40-foot pole 10 feet from my house that happens to also be 30 feet from my neighbor's house, do we need to?
It's the setback, Mr. Michel, concerning this tower, because the tower shouldn't be in that area. In other words, what we're saying is if you're allowing to place it in that what is it, 10-foot, Chris, 5-foot, what is it, the areas from the property line?
5 foot is the
Well, but that-
setback.
So what he's
But-
saying is that if you allow them to put it in there and they put it in there, that it's not gonna be a violation of the setback requirement.
Well, that's,
Which is, in a lot of instances, is good because it keeps it out the front. Correct, Chris? That's the theory behind it.
Right, but I think that language is actually not even part of what we put together for the small cell wireless facilities. I think that language was there when this ordinance, when this chapter was put together as it relates to, look at the title, Section 6-183, setback requirements for construction of communication towers. So that's any macro tower, whether it's in Summerfield or Chauvin. You can't have, well, you can't have an inhabited residential structure within the, if it's a 150-foot tall tower, you can't have any occupied structure within 150 feet. However, if AT&T approached a private landowner and said, look, or a provider, I don't want to pick
Sure.
anyone, but if a provider approached a landowner and said, we want to put one on your property, and the landowner allows for it to happen, well, then that landowner is exempt from that setback requirement
as to his
on their
residence.
own property.
But he's not exempt to his neighbors.
Correct. So if
Okay.
his neighbor if his neighbor's house is within that 150 foot, then they couldn't put it.
Okay,
Right.
all right, that's what I wanted to know,
Yeah.
okay.
Point of order, please. You know, our thing here is we need to vote this up or down. We can't make any changes, and I understand we're getting into detail word for word, but this is the stuff that needs to get back to committee. If the council wants to make changes, we need to just vote this
Yeah, I mean,
down
I
and
agree.
rediscuss it in committee, because we could be here all night discussing every line
Well,
here.
we're
We
about-
can't make any
These type of
changes.
things should be discussed, should be sent to legal and to planning on something this complex before with these kind of questions, and we can address them. Tonight, this is being presented for an up and down vote. It's not to say not to
But
have a
we just-
discussion.
we
but
can't
this
make
is
any
getting into
changes
technical
tonight.
drafting issues.
So, thank you.
Also, we've already closed public hearings, so to make any substantial changes, we'd have to come back and do it another time. Public hearing's closed.
That is correct. If you're gonna do substantial changes, right now, we
So-
only got, we got a correction of a spelling and,
Right,
and,
and you're answering the questions that I want to know the answers to, and I think the public deserves the answers to.
well, it's not that the public doesn't deserve the what I'm saying, I'm not saying that, I'm saying is that this isn't the, I don't think the forum where you do this is a technical
Well,
drafting
and had
error.
you sent me it earlier, I could've
Gerald, this
called
has been up
somebody.
for 3 weeks. This has had to be, we had to call a public hearing. This didn't get filed last week, this has been there for 3 weeks.
Yeah, it came up 3 weeks ago, and then, of course, everybody just, passes everything, it can go to public hearing, and I'll leave it at that. Now, hey, look, I got about 4 more things, if y'all want to discuss them. If you don't want to, I can just, you know, we can put it off, or y'all can just ignore it, you know, whatever you want to do.
Well, we have several other lights. How much time you got? You need?
I just, a couple more minutes, I'm almost done. On page 10, item 6-185, section B, number 2, there's a typo. Just read that and correct the typo, please. Page-
Where is that, Gerald?
Page 10, 6-185, section B, number 2 underneath that. If co-location is not an option, it should say when such facilities exist in the area, I would guess. Right?
Yeah, we could change that to
Okay,
when.
I mean, you know,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, he's basically saying if well, you want.
Yeah.
Public hearing's over.
Page 13, is it the planning department, is it the parish who determines what's reasonable?
Okay,
Whenever-
could you direct us to the section and where you're looking at?
On
mean
page
use- the use-
13, the top of the page, to the extent reasonable, shall incorporate stealth and aesthetics to camouflage to the extent reasonable. Is it the parish that determines what's reasonable?
That is correct.
Well, that or our consultant.
On our
So
consultant.
an
Okay,
example of that would be, okay, we have a requirement for shrouds over the antenna, but if there's some element of camouflage or stealth or what have you that would make the function of the antenna not perform to the standard that it needs to perform, then that would not be reasonable.
In other words, the purpose of that is
Two more.
the FCC,
I think it's been answered already.
okay,
We
well,
can
Yeah,
move
okay.
on.
All right, under use of rights of way, C, right below that, under number 1 and 2, underneath lowercase b, the 10-foot above the existing, the highest utility pole or the 50-foot max. Is that 50-foot max, is that anywhere in a subdivision or in a rural area, or is it?
Yes.
Because that's kind of tall, but, you know, I'm just asking the question. And the final thing, on page 14, the last page at the top, no application review or application review timeline under any applicable law shall commence until an application is delivered to and deemed complete. Why is and deemed complete marked off? I think that was a great phrase.
well, because how can you deem something complete when you just dropped off the application? That would be like dropping your shirts off at the cleaners and saying they cleaned.
No, the application is complete, not approved.
The application is, the application is delivered to the Director of Planning and Zoning. He has to receive the application in order to review it and deem it complete. So, I mean, that's why it's written. In other words, you bring the application in, and then he's gonna review it, and tell them what there's some criteria that goes into this, Mr. Michel, about when that application is brought in, and with the planning department, and what they gotta do with the shot clocks, and that's why this is written. Chris and I address this way.
Okay, I don't know why that would be taken off to me. It would seem like
Because
the shot clock should start after it's deemed complete, but that's good. Okay, now, I would make a motion to approve this, subject to the 500-foot and the minor changes that Mr. Pulaski has written down.
Okay, we have some more lights, Mr. Navy.
Wait a minute, you can't.
Wait, they made a motion.
We're in
now.
public hearing, okay, so, wait, Jules, hold on, wait. This is not Robert Rules of Orders, first of all. We're in public hearing, okay? We have an ordinance in front of us. If it has to be changed, we got to bring that back to the public. You can't change it in public hearing. Well, you just said you could change it in public hearing?
You can make some changes to ordinances that substantially comport with the ordinance. We don't do it, and we generally try to refrain from doing it, but you can, as long as it stays with.
That's
within
not
the-
Robert Rules of Orders, and I'm not gonna.
Well, we've had this come up before, and it is, you can make changes that are in comport with the intent of what's before the body. Okay.
What's being?
This is not and you can't make major substantive
Well,
changes.
any changes is major, because if you're making something, he just told you, an ordinance was presented to us that we had to vote on. Now you're making no matter what changes you make, you're making some changes. The rest of the council hadn't gotten a chance to evaluate the process, just like he said he did. That's not Robert Rules of Orders if you're talking about in a public, this is a public hearing we have.
Well,
You do what y'all want to do, I'm not voting.
I mean, what I'm saying is that is up to the board whether or not it will accept the changes. The spelling errors and stuff, that I don't have a problem with. The only real major change that he's making is from 250 to 500, and y'all would have to vote on whether or not y'all gonna allow, based on his motion, to allow those changes to be made, first of all.
This is public policy. I mean, we're changing something. You just as Robert Rules of Waters, this is in a public hearing. I'm telling you, you can't change it, then ask the council to vote on it. But y'all do what y'all want to do.
Yeah,
Mr. Babin.
Yeah, thank you. It's been so long, I almost forgot what I wanted to say. Listen, I'm getting old, okay? I applaud Gerald for doing this because there were a lot of problems with the last one. One in Mr. Navy's district, one in either John or Gerald's district, and one in the district that I represent, okay? And it was a big problem. I just don't think this was the forum to do this tonight. Now, keep in mind too, in geometry, when they say in 250 feet, that radiates from the center. So it's 500 feet from one area to the other, okay? So we already have a 500 feet covered. It's not from the tower itself, but from the outside to the outside, it's 500 feet. I think that's a minor change. Again, if you think they're gonna put up a tower in an area now, and the people past 250 feet aren't gonna know about it, we're fooling ourselves, okay? Because everybody knows about small cell towers now. I think it stays consistent. I sat on the Planning and Zoning Commission. It stays consistent on what they have there with the Board of Adjustments. I see no reason that we need to change those things at this point in time tonight. I think this should have been addressed at a different forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Darren Guidry.
Yeah, and just for the record, this ordinance was online August 7th, over a month ago. It was discussed in a hearing in committee on August 10th. It was discussed again and presented on August 12th to call the public hearing. And then today we have the public hearing. So we've had an opportunity to see this. Any questions I had, of course, before the meeting I had contacted Mr. Jules with any questions. But if we're changing the little minor thing, we took one word out, I can see. But if we're going from 250 to 500 feet, there may be somebody who is a resident of Terrebonne Parish, has some financial interest or whatever in this, and might have wanted to come and talk to us and tell us the burden of the 500 feet versus the 250. We have now deprived them of that opportunity because we have closed public hearing and made what I consider a substantial change. So I don't think that change would fly. The little word, I could say okay, but 500 is not. But my major issue with this is the review and application decision by staff. The fact that there is no appeals process, and if we have residents that don't think they should be a permit, they're submitting information, I see nothing that comes to this council that we can override any decisions, and we're the ones that get the phone calls. And I can tell you, every time one of these is discussed, I get phone calls, and none of them are saying, I love the technology. They're all saying, I don't want this in my backyard, and I don't think I should have to have this in my backyard. And that's the only piece of this that I have heartburn with. That was the issue we had before, because one of the language in it was the pole must be to the same character as the neighborhood, or one. And the interpretation by staff was different than the intent when we approved it. And so that is my only thing, is that there's no appeals process.
Let me explain to you why there's no appeals process. Because the FCC has you under their guidelines and their time. You wouldn't have time to do it. They're under a shot clock, and it comes with severe consequences. So, I mean, none of them we looked at, Chris. Did we see any with an appeals process? None. You can't do it. You won't be able to have it fast enough. And the staff has to make a professional and a legal decision on these. So what I'm saying is, none of the ones that we've looked at, and we looked at a bunch of them, had any appeals process. The appeals process is that if they feel that an arbitrary and unreasonable decision has been made, they're entitled to file a lawsuit in federal court, and if they win, even get attorney fees. So I'm saying is that there was none that we looked at that had, you don't have enough time. They're under, once that application's submitted, One of them has a 10-day rule, I believe, is that correct, Chris? And one of them has a 30-day rule.
Yes.
You have to move. The FCC wants wants
I
you to
thought
move
last
them.
time we spoke that the FCC hadn't gotten into small cell wireless. and
Oh,
was
no,
gonna move that.
no, I said they were into it. They regulate, they have gotten into small cell wireless about a year and a half ago, because they were having a lot of issues. And so, no, they do regulate.
But some of these things, like the aesthetics of the neighborhood, and I mean, we're relying it up to staff to say whether it's aesthetically pleasing in a neighborhood, and a lot of these are subjective, somewhat subjective, and, you know,
That is correct, because we have to make sure, because on aesthetics, the courts are not gonna let you go and use aesthetics as a reason basically to deny a small cell. You have to give specific guidelines on the aesthetics, and it's gotta be within comport of what the area already is. So there's some criteria there, and that's why we came up with the design manual. But there wasn't, as far as I know, any of the ones that we looked at there's just not enough time. It's not
So-
like a zoning matter.
what you're telling me, in your legal opinion, that if we did not want to have small cell wireless in Terrebonne Parish, we could not do that.
That is correct. You could not deny them unless you could deny every other communication provider the right not to come in. Telephone, cell phone, everywhere. You cannot discriminate against small cell wireless. And that is why some states took it away from the local jurisdictions. And I forget how many the last time I looked. Correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, you may know, but I think it was about 18 to 20 states have passed statutes where they've just taken it away from local jurisdictions, okay, so that they didn't run into these problems. So Louisiana still has an area, and we were one of the first ones to come up with ordinances. Baton Rouge was still in, some of the other areas were not, was still in the process. I think Jefferson now has passed theirs. So, yes, I mean, the FCC, we cannot stop small cell wild, we cannot discriminate.
And
Is
to
what
your
the word is.
knowledge, has any community been challenged on this?
Point of order, Mr. Chairman. No disrespect, Mr. Guidry, but you just got through saying how many times we reviewed this at public hearings prior to tonight, and now you're bringing up something that
We're
could have been
discussing,
discussed.
excuse me, Mr. Babin, we're not discussing the language, we're discussing whether I am going to vote yes or no on this ordinance. And I should have the opportunity to find out what happens if I vote no on this ordinance, and that's what I'm asking our legal
Well, we already
counsel.
have an ordinance. We already had an ordinance. We made the changes to try and address some of the issues that everybody around the country, there was nothing wrong with our ordinances to begin with, other than the fact that this was new to everybody. So after, it's like everything else. It reminds me of like when computer software first came out. Microsoft, you can email them and tell them the problem. In fact, the people is the one that that ultimately solved the software problems, because you can't think of every little situation. So over time, people have had, these things have gotten out, people have seen them, the public's complained, we make adjustments. These are just some changes that we've made to our pre-existing ordinance. To answer your question is no, you cannot, I don't think that we can, I think we cannot deny small cell ordinance completely. That's my opinion.
Thanks, Mr. Abear.
Ms. Dominique, you still want your light? Mr. Harding?
Yes, earlier I was trying to actually do the public a favor, and I think Mr. Pulaski, along with a couple other people I've met within consolidated government, are some of the smartest people I know, have met in recent years. Trust me.
Thanks.
And I think at times that I've actually contacted this man, he has actually given me some very, very important information off the top of his head. We've reached a point where we've got into a conversation before the public with some information that we should already know. We had an opportunity for members of the public to express their feelings, yay or nay, and what is presented to us is not a bunch of rhetoric amongst ourselves. It's for us to make a decision. And that's why we have a certain amount of people on here. Put it to a vote and let's move on. Thank you.
Well said, Mr. Harding. Okay, we have a substitute motion by Mr. Michel, and I'm not exactly sure how it's worded.
Well, anybody made a second? Nobody's made a second to it.
No, I just want
Oh.
to read what his substitute is
You
and
wanna
ask
read
for
it?
a second.
You want to read it back, Suzette? Okay, so,
This is the motion, right? We adopted it.
he's making a motion to amend the ordinance. He's making a motion to amend the ordinance and adopt the amendment. Okay, so if you want to listen to that motion, if it fails, and then somebody can make a motion to accept as it is, and then move on.
Okay, well, if you can't do that, I'll withdraw the motion.
You withdrawing your motion? Yeah. Okay, so can I get a motion to adopt the ordinance as is?
Second.
Moved by Mr. John Navy, second Mr. Carl Harding, all in favor? Any opposition? Show one opposition, Mr. Gerald Michel. Motion carries. Next item is committee reports, Public Services Committee.
I make a motion tonight that the council accept and ratify the minutes of the Public Service Committee meeting held on September 8, 2020, which called for one public hearing considering the introduction of an ordinance to authorize the acquisition of sites or servitudes required for the Elliott Jones Pump Station project, authorized the parish president to execute and all documents necessary to acquire sites and or servitudes for the said process, to authorize the parish president and legal staff to commence explorations processing in the event the site or servitudes cannot be obtained conveniently, to declare that the taking of if required, is necessary and useful for the benefits of the public, and to provide for other matters relative thereto, and calling a public hearing on said matter on Wednesday, September 23rd, 2020 at 6:30 p.m.
Motion by Mr. Harding, second by Mr. Dirk Gidry, all in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Community Development Planning Committee.
I'd like to make a motion that the council accept and ratify the minutes of the Community Development and Planning Committee held on September 8th, 2020, which calls for no public hearings.
Motion by Ms. Jessica Domingue, second by Mr. Dirk Gidry, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. We need to call a public hearing on this ratification. Put your mic on, I can hear you.
The ratification of those minutes was noted when Mr. Harding presented his minutes. He's
Okay.
the only committee that had public hearings.
Okay, that's it. All right. Item 5, streetlights. As per Mr. Dirk Gidry, second Ms. Jessica Domingue, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Appointments to various boards, committees, and commissions. TITA, 3 expiring terms representing each of the following. The council, 1 appointee, must be African American. Mr. P.J. Aldridge submitted an application. It's in the backup if you guys need to see it. Mr. Harding.
Yeah, I make a motion to hold this over for till the next meeting.
Okay, a motion to hold it over, Mr. Harding, second Mr. John Davy, all in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Chamber of Commerce submits recommendation to appoint Nicholas Hebert. Motion open, close, to appoint Darren Gidry, second Mr. John Davy, all in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. SCIA submits a recommendation to appoint C.J. Domingue. Open,
Second.
close, and appoint Mr. Darren Gidry, second Mr. Carl Harding, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Show one abstention, Ms. Jessica Domingue. Motion carries. Recreation District 2-3, 1 vacancy due to resignation. Mr. Ren Buddy A. Halford, Billy Juno, and Dwayne Guerin submit application resumes for consideration. Can we get a roll? Open, close the vote, Mr. Darren Gidry. Second, Mr. Gerald Michel, all in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Can we get a roll call vote, Ms. LaCour?
Mr. Charles Clare?
Mr. Halford?
Mr. Navy? Mr. Harding?
Halford.
Mr. Michelle? Mr. Amity?
Halford?
Ms. Domingue? Mr. Darren Goodry?
Alfred?
Mr. Danny Bowden? Mr. Dirk Goodry?
Which one?
Mr. Chairman, there are 7 votes for Mr. Ren Halford, 1 vote for Mr. Billy Juno, and 1 vote for Mr. Guerin.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Halford is the new appointee. Is he in the audience? Okay, moving on. Terrebonne Parish Rec Modernization Advisory Board. 15 members representing the 11 recreation districts and 4 members of the business community to be appointed. The following individuals have submitted applications and resumes for consideration. Before we vote, I have 2 speaker cards, and we will listen to the speakers before we vote, and then we'll go to the voting. Ms. Laura Browning.
Let me think. I don't know, I didn't catch that.
Yes, sir. Laura Browning, 1311 Highway 55 in Montague. On August 12th, in a discussion about the formation of the Terrebonne Parish Recreation Modernization Task Force, there were several council members who expressed support for a non-voting recreation advisor position in the group. Yet when the ordinance is completed, the position was omitted. As a member and vice chair of the parish president's parish-wide recreation advisory board, we hope the position would be named from the advisory board. We stand ready to provide information on the maintenance, operations of recreation districts. The members of the board represent all 11 districts on our combination of board members and staff. Our board meets monthly to receive input and information on the maintenance and operation of parish-wide programs and facilities. We share information on trimming costs, operations, management, and discuss ways to meet the needs of our unique communities. We would appreciate contributing to the work of the Recreation Modernization Advisory Board and therefore requesting the discussed non-voting position be implemented.
Okay, Mr. Hardy, you want to address Ms.? Okay. Ms. Domingue?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. And we actually do have a place for the non-voting voting members. It is on, I'm sorry, it's under G, which would be under 1G, and it says that the advisory board can have non-voting ad hoc members, which may include certain people, and it specifically says community stakeholders. I would imagine that the recreation task force, the advisory board that you're on, would be one of these members.
When I made application, it was denied.
Denied for a...
That there was no position on this modernization for a non-voting advisory member.
Okay. It
And I
says-
represent the board.
Okay.
It was under my impression that the advisory committee was going to appoint its person, that the council wasn't going to appoint, that the advisory board was going to choose one member to represent the ad hoc. I didn't know that was even coming to us. I just thought the advisory board
It actually
was-
does say non-voting members are appointed by the chair, so whoever the chair...
Of the task force?
The chair of the task force, yes. So once the task force is put together, whoever the chair of the task force can actually appoint those members.
That is correct. That's the way it's set up. That
Yes,
the
and that's the way
advisory
it says
board,
it.
the advisory board will set up a separate, the advisory board will set up a separate advisory board. How you like that? Okay, not non-voting. So in other words, it's set up that the chair can appoint, if you want to be on the whoever's going to be the chair of the advisory board, go to them and tell them you'd like to serve. then he'll bring your name or your group before that board, and they will choose. The purpose of this is they're non-voting members, is to let that board decide who they want to work with them. They're
Correct.
non-voting.
Okay.
Okay, it's just an advisory to the advisory.
Okay.
And it's in here, it's under G.
It's under G,
Yeah.
it's the last sentence. The non-voting members shall reside in Terrebonne Parish and can become non-voting members by appointment of the chair and confirmation by a quorum of the voting advisory board.
We would like the Terrebonne Parish President's Parish-wide Advisory Board to be named as a member of the organization, not as an ad hoc.
You asking that the whole board be appointed?
No, one member representing the board.
Oh, well, did somebody submit their name from the board?
Yes, me,
And you submitted your name as an at-large
with
member?
a letter, yes, from the board. It was accompanied by a letter from the board.
Staff did receive her application, and in getting clarification on it, I was informed that she wasn't able to serve because she's also a member of the REC District Number 6 Board, following the provisions under IB, which says that, to avoid potential conflicts of interest, no member or members' immediate family members of the task force shall simultaneously be an employee of or serve on any recreation district board, nor should a member or members' immediate family members have any business interest in any recreation district contract. So given that provision, because she's also a member of the Rec District Number 6, it would have disqualified her unless somebody has a better clarification of it.
Oh, that is correct. If
But
she's
as a vote,
if-
as a voting member, yes. But as a non-voting member,
That's up to
She-
the other board. That's up to the
they should,
advisory
she
board.
should have the opportunity to serve on that board.
As I stated, we wish to serve as an advisory position named on the construction of the board.
But she wants to be, Mr.
She's
she-
asking to be a non-voting member of the advisory.
You want to
board.
be a voting or non-voting?
We'll be glad to take non-voting, sir. We're
Well,
just
then
there in
that,
advisory.
then submit your application.
It's been submitted,
No, you couldn't because the board's not appointed yet.
but we don't wish to be appointed by the board. We wish to be appointed as you appointed other members of the district.
But that's not how it was set up.
Yes, sir, I know, and I'm saying that at the
Okay.
original meeting on August 12th at 8:30, the discussion was that there would be a non-voting recreation board advisory member, and it did not make it into the ordinance.
It's not an ordinance, it's a resolution.
Resolution, I'm sorry.
Resolution, so, I mean, it's up to, it was set up, so it's up to that board in order to choose the advisory committee, that if it wants input from the advisory, that does not preclude anybody from going to their meetings. Those are gonna be public meetings. Okay, and I mean, you're gonna have the right to speak and voice your opinion, I mean, so it's not like you can't do that, I mean.
Just as you've named people from the chamber and other entities from different boards tonight, we wish to have the parish-wide president's advisory board named as a position on this task force.
Well, that's up to, Ms. Domang or anybody if they
And
wanna.
Mr. Aber, it says specifically, you know, other community stakeholders, so that could be someone from CASA, that could be someone from the hospital, that could be any community stakeholders who has an interest
That is
in
correct.
recreation.
That is
So,
correct.
yes, absolutely. As Mr. Aber said, once this committee or this task force is put together, go to them and say, I want to be part of the process. I can't imagine any reason why they wouldn't allow you guys to do that.
And what we are seeking, and I'll be finished in a moment, is a position that is tagged out for the parish president's parish-wide recreation board and not identified as a member of the general public.
Well, I
You
mean,
finished? Mr. Michelle.
Thank you for coming, and I appreciate your knowledge, but that's not the way they set it up. They're kind of making this up as they go, and it's ridiculous because you and other people on boards are being omitted from this, yet the people who are trying to reform are included. So they're trying to make it not biased, but really that's just what they're saying. They're just trying to make it biased in the manner in which they want it biased. So, you know, I mean, it can't be done the way you want. That's not the way the ordinance says. There were a lot of things that were discussed, and they said, oh, yes, I can agree with that, I can agree with that. Then when it was approved in its original version. So it was just typical politics, and you know, I appreciate you wanting to serve, but they're not going to let you do it this way. Thank you.
Mr. Harding.
Yes, I tend to agree with the ladies from her point. Her point is saying that anyone can come in from the general public and attend the task force meeting. She's stating specifically not to be ostracized. She wants to be included into the meetings. If they close the door to all members of that particular task force and no members of the public, she still can be included in her position that she's asking for. Am I correct now?
Yes, sir.
I would agree with her. Because she desires to be on the board, and somehow or another, I don't even know who's going to be the chairman. We don't know how we're going to pick the chairman. Oddly enough, to a certain extent, without all the politics, I do agree with some of what Mr. Misha just said. So I would like to let my expression to be known that I sympathize with this lady.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Abadi.
What Ms. Browning's talking about is in the discussion, there were several non-voting members, which would have been like Ms. Candace Malden, other staff members with the government, and that was the one thing that I was asking for, was that we have a member of the parish president's advisory committee, that they would select one of their own, because they have a working knowledge of what they can and can't do in the recreation districts. Another member was Mr. Roddy LaReal, and I don't remember who the other one was. That's the language that she's referring to that we discussed and thought we had worked out, but when the ordinance came out, it was written in a different way and not as specific. So that's why she's referencing what was discussed in that August earlier meeting on the 8th. So I don't know where you want to go with that one, but
This, if I can just explain, first of all, Mr. Amade, with all due respect, this is not an ordinance, a resolution. It can be changed. It did have originally staff members from the executive branch, from administration, because this is the council's board, advisory board, which is non-binding. They're just going to report back to you, and you're going to make a decision whether you're going to do anything or not do anything. But we had to keep the separation of powers. We couldn't have staff sitting on a board that's going to be a council board that's going to be making recommendations. We are here to provide services to you and any board that the council creates. So to keep the executive and the legislative branch separate, we couldn't put staff members on there. That's why staff didn't go in there. If you need staff, if you need Candace, me, Mike, Chris, we're all willing to do as instructed as the task force needs. As far as having any other non-advisory board members, since you have that board set up, that board can, if it wants to appoint another side board, advisory board, it was set up that they can ask other people or put other people on there. Now, if somebody who can meet the requirements and is not an existing rec board member, then they can be put on there. Other than that, the resolution can be changed. I mean, it's you know, you can make a motion tonight and change it. It's just a resolution.
Yeah, that's fine, Mr. Hebert, and I thank you for that explanation. I think that's a more clear explanation. I was just saying what she's referring to is that, but it had to be changed because of what you just said and explained.
That's why that was changed.
Yes,
if
thank
you.
you.
It was still late. The reason, as I recall, the real talk about the advisory board was because of Jessica or somebody else said that they thought that they would like our local legislative delegation possibly to sit as advisory members on the board, which would be our state reps and our state senator. And I think that's what it was. And when we drafted it, we put it that, hey, you want to put somebody else on the advisory board, put them on there. So they're a non-voting member, and the advisory board can choose who they want to be on it. Now, if somebody wants to sit on the main board and they don't have the conflict of interest, unless you want to take the conflict of interest out, submit your name, and y'all can vote on them. So what I'm saying, if somebody from the president's task force that is that does not sit on a recreation board submits their name, y'all gonna elect some people at large. First of all, I believe y'all short on some of the districts, so y'all gonna have to fill it. She's gonna have to make a motion to fill it from the resolution in order to fill it. So, I mean, submit your name into the general pool, and y'all gonna vote who you gonna put on there. Ms. Browning's got somebody. Ms. Browning's on the board, so unless you change the rule about having people sitting on the board, that doesn't mean that she cannot have somebody that's on the president's task force that would become a member.
Everyone on the task force is a member of a rec district board.
Well,
That's what it's made up of.
On the president's parish-wide recreation.
Yes, every member is
advisory group, every member of the board is either a board member in a recreation district or a staff member in a recreation district.
Well, I'm saying, a staff, but a staff member would be okay. They're not a board member. A staff member does not make voting decisions.
The ordinance says that it's a staff, any staff member of any rec district, any board member, any family member, immediate family member. I'm not reading it, I'm going off the top of my head.
Okay, hold on. To avoid potential, that's correct. It says shall be an employee or serve on any recreation or be a member or have any business interest. So it does say members. Well,
Okay.
can you come up with somebody, can y'all come up with somebody that's not an employee and not, on the board that y'all would like to represent y'all? Can y'all find
No, we
somebody?
wish it to be someone who has a relationship to recreation in Terrebonne Parish, either as a board member or as an employee of the recreation districts. We represent all 11 districts, and we
I think
feel
the
we
board
have unique
members could have a
knowledge.
conflict of interest in the evaluations, because this
Okay,
task
this is your opinion, let's move on. I mean,
Thank you.
we're gonna do something. Mr. Harding? Okay. We have one more, thank you, Ms.
All right, thank you.
Browning. I have one more, speaker card, Mr. Johnny Marks.
Good evening. Good to be alive. My name is Johnny Marks. I'm at address 4812 North by Black Drive. I've been a recreation member for over 25 years of Recreation District 8. I need someone that can explain to me, is this a task force board? Is this a modernization advisory board? And it also says 15 members, one represent 11 recreation districts. How is it determined that you know that the person in each one of these districts is in this district? And 4 members of a business community. What is the purpose of this modernization task advisory board, whatever you're calling it? Look like you have 2 names, a task committee board. Is it a modernization board? What is the purpose of this board? What is it going to be doing?
Okay, we'll get you the answer. Ms. Domingue?
But point of order, just, Mr. Chair, let me advise you that this has not been noticed on the agenda. This resolution was passed at the last meeting, so this is not part of it was not noticed as part of the agenda now to go back and discuss the intent and purposes of this board. Okay, this is, you here to appoint members. That's all this is about right now.
I understand that. I'm asking for myself.
No, but
what is the purpose of this board? What
It's
is
not
it
an
going to be
agenda
doing?
item, is what I'm saying. We gotta stick with the agenda by law. What they're here tonight to do is to appoint members, and we're getting off the subject of appointing members. Now we talk going back about the intent of the board.
Point of order, what did he have on his form?
Item 6C on the agenda.
Okay.
6C is the,
You should have put it under public wishing to address the council.
right. So I'm gonna have to ask you to step back because we ain't actually voting members.
So,
Question?
Mr. Harding.
Yeah. At any point of his presence here, be associated, and I think he made mention to part of it, is the qualification. It's not to so much in reference to the vote, but then it may be bringing up something to the podium that questions the qualifications. So if the qualifications perhaps has been in a position where he may question it, and or before he may not have been questioning it.
No, sir, this is not a public hearing, and this is not an ordinance. It's open for hearing. This resolution was set last meeting to be discussed and was approved. The only thing you can do now is appoint whether or not somebody's qualified or not is made by staff and amongst the council.
It's
This
made
is
by
not
staff.
this is not a public, this is not a time for the public to speak.
The
It's not on the
names-
agenda. It's, in other words, it's not on the agenda today.
The board, well, okay, in my point, in my opinion, it's the fact that he's not questioning the task force itself, even though he may have presented himself that. But then we haven't gotten these names until this week. So therefore, you know, what I mean, if a name never appeared at any portion prior to all of this until maybe he read it today. You know, and not only that, he's in a position, and he said he's in Rec 8. And he's been there. So I think his question was leading to that because I had a previous conversation with him. And it may be in a position that, you know, what I mean, we both may be trying to.
I know, but it's, but Councilman Harden is not on the agenda. If he's going to discuss it, if this would be on the agenda, you may have other people that want to discuss it. We cannot discuss
Of course, you're
things.
gonna have somebody else discuss it. I got you, Johnny.
Now, if he wants to come back next time and
We're
come
gonna
bring
handle
us
that
the
tonight.
public,
We'll handle it tonight, in a different way.
Okay, we're gonna start the voting. It's gonna be kind of complicated. Mr. Babin.
Yeah. And again, I go along.
Put your mic on.
I go along with the wishes of the council. In January, at our first meeting, we voted to go by Robert's Rules of Order. I want someone, and if it's Mr. Abear, to explain to us Robert's Rules of Order in terms of voting on this particular issue tonight, because I did raise a question, and again, if I'm wrong, I have no problem with that. We have a number of people on here that are saying that they want to be as a at-large, but if they're not voted on for the district, then they want it to go at large. That seems on the surface to mean that they get two shots at it. Now, I could be wrong, okay? If you read, it says, one of them says, request to be appointed as one of the 4 at-large voting members representing the business community if not appointed to represent a district. Does that not give that person 2 opportunities to be on that? And again, I'm only questioning this because I was questioned on it, all right?
yeah, I don't have, they in the name of the pool of the people, and as long as the council wants to vote on it, in other words, if you don't get elected, but then you're gonna have a pool of people that are gonna submit their names to be out of the general membership, I don't see a problem with that.
So, but again, and please correct me, did we say a business owner or we said general public in the ordinance? I'm asking. 'Cause
In the resolution?
In the resolution. We keep saying ordinance, resolution. I mean, if it says general public, then I don't have a problem with that. Then everybody that's not voted on, if there's multiple ones in the district, name can be put in there. But I thought we said business owners.
We said business okay, here it is, I'm gonna read directly what it says. Number 12, 4 at-large voting members residing in Terrebonne Parish who are members of the business community are either a proprietor, partner, or officer of a business in Terrebonne Parish.
Okay, so it can't just be the general public. It has to be a business
That is
owner,
correct.
okay?
That is
So if each one of these individuals are business owners, then they're getting double shots at it, is all I'm saying. They're getting the shot at being voted on in the rec district, and then if they don't make it there, then they say, I want to be voted on as a business owner. And if we don't have a problem with that, it's okay. I just
don't
want
see
to
a
know where
problem.
Robert's Rules of Order says that can happen.
I don't think that Robert's Rules of Order says that it cannot happen. You're voting on, the person's nominated to serve on as a rec district. If it doesn't get voted, they just go back in the general pool who want to be appointed. Remember, this is a rec force task advisory board.
Again, as
Okay.
I stated from the beginning, I don't have a problem with that. I just wanted to bring that out because it was brought to my attention that it seemed like somebody would have an ability to double dip. If we saying that they're not double dipping, then that's fine. Let's move forward with this.
I don't
Okay?
think they double dipped them because they can only serve in one position.
But they get a chance to be voted on twice.
But y'all opened the nomination. Anybody that wants to serve on here can be served on it.
Okay, that's
Now,
fine.
if y'all want to make a rule, if you want to adopt a rule, that the people who did not win on the rec districts cannot be, then you could adopt that rule, make a motion and adopt it if that's what y'all want to do. But I
have
don't see a problem with it.
I don't have a problem with it because then, no, that's no problem. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. See no further lights. Okay, what we're gonna do is, there are no applications turned in for Rec 3A and Rec 6. Okay? So the ordinance, the resolution states that there has to be 2 African-American members on this board. There are 2 African-American applicants only. So I have a motion.
Excuse me,
Ms.
Mr.
Harding?
Chair. We didn't have a motion, we went into discussion, so we'll need a motion.
Right.
So I make a motion.
Okay. Okay.
That we take the 2 African Americans, PJ Ulrich and Diane Collins, to become automatic members of the task force and leaves,
On the
which
2
are.
vacant spots. On the 2 vacant spots, right?
Right, okay. And which would also, to make the council aware and the public aware, that will also leave 2, which they both coming from Rec 11.
Okay.
All right,
So we have a
and-
motion by Mr. Harding, a second by Mr. Darren Gedrick, to appoint Diane Collins, Wilfred Aldridge, to the vacant spots on, 2 vacant spots on the the task force.
That represents the African Americans.
All in favor? Up 2 lights. Mr., I'm not sure who was first.
I'll take it.
Mr. Amity.
Okay, so I thought there was a place for them outside, that we have the 15 rec districts, and then we had 3 additional spots, 2 of which had to be African American. But what you're saying is we're putting them in 3A spot and 6's spot?
Well, there aren't any applications, they're vacant spots.
I thought we were gonna.
Of the 15.
I thought we were gonna go back at some point when somebody applies and fill those spots. I thought the 2 African Americans were part of
That's fine.
the final 3. I'm just asking.
Well, that's fine.
Well, you know,
At
man,
this point, that's what I understood, was that we have to have 15. So this will make 15, but we can have 17. So if somebody from 6 and 3A come, they can
Come
be
later.
added. That's what I
So
understood
you
when I
want to withdraw
seconded the
your
motion.
So I can withdraw the motion, so that's gonna let those people that are running for Rec 11 remain.
Well, your motion's still intact, but you're appointing them at large
At large.
to fill the 14th and 15th slot. It's not filling their position, but, it brings us to 15 because we're too short.
Correct. I stated it wrong. I'm sorry.
Okay.
And I second that.
Steve,
Okay.
Steve,
Yeah.
I just want a clarification on that. We're voting on those 2 to be at large. Does that take 2 of the 4 spots at large?
No, these are gonna be 2 spots, my understanding.
No.
My understanding.
We
These
only
are gonna
have
be-
4 spots at large, okay?
These are gonna be 2 spots that are gonna be bring the total tonight to 15. We have 18 spots available on this advisory board. If we do get submissions from 3A and 6, and we vote them in, then that'll make the advisory board 17 members, not 15. That's my understanding. Okay.
So it's not gonna encumber us
No.
from voting 4 members from the general public? That's all I wanna know.
No, we're not taking these out.
Okay, not a problem.
We just may end up with 17 members on the board
I
rather
just wanna
than
make a
15.
point of clarification on that.
Okay. Any more lights? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Okay, we're gonna move on to Rec District 1. 4 candidates, Brandon Boudreau, excuse me, 3 candidates. Joseph Boudreau and Christopher Dehart. Roll call, please.
Mr. Trosclair?
Do what?
They're doing a roll call.
Why is Brandon Boudreaux not on there?
I called Brandon Boudreau.
Huh?
I called Brandon
You called
Boudreau,
him?
Joseph Boudreau.
Oh, I
and
thought you
Chris-
just named 2. Okay, go ahead. All right. Sorry.
I call a vote.
Mr. Trosclair?
Joseph Boudreau.
Mr. Navy? Mr. Harding?
Boudreaux.
Which one?
Got 2 of them.
Huh?
Got 2, pick one.
Oh, Joseph. But let me ask a question then. If that's the case, but I'm here. Now, going back to something what Mr. Babin was saying. Now, we have one guy to be at large from the business community, so it's either Joseph Boudreaux or Dehart, right?
Say it again. I didn't.
Any of the 3.
We're on the vote. Look, you gotta stick to the vote, Steve.
You're voting for 1 member from District 1 right now.
Okay. Okay. Joseph Boudreaux.
Okay.
Mr. Michel?
Joseph Boudreaux.
Mr. Amity?
Joseph Boudreaux.
Ms. Domingue? Mr. Darren Goodry?
Joseph Boudreau.
Mr. Danny Bavin? Mr. Dirk Goodry? Mr. Chairman, there are 0 votes for Mr. Brandon Boudreau, 9 votes for Mr. Joseph Boudreau, and 0 votes for Mr. Chris Dehart.
Thank you. Mr. Joseph Boudreau
With Joseph.
is the new member. Rec District 2-3, there'll be 3 candidates for that one. Erica Lambert, Joe Tutone III, Nicholas Hebert.
Mr. Trosclair?
Joe Tutone.
Mr. Navy? Mr. Harding?
Two-tone.
Mr. Michel?
Joe Tutone III.
Ms. Amity? Ms. Domingue? Mr. Darren Goodry?
Erica Lambert.
Mr. Babin? And Mr. Dirk Goodry. Mr. Chairman, there are 2 votes for Ms. Erica Lambert, 5 votes for Mr. Joe Tutone III, and 2 votes for Mr. Nicholas Hebert.
Mr. Tutone is the new member. Rec District 4, there's 2 candidates, Sherry Roach and John Silver.
Mr. Trosclair?
John Silver.
Mr. Navy? Mr. Harding?
John Silver.
Mr. Michel?
John Silver.
Mr. Amity? Ms. Domingue? Mr. Darren Goodry?
Sherry Roche.
Mr. Babin? Mr. Dirk Goodry? Mr. Chairman, there are 2 votes for Ms. Sherry Roach and 7 votes for Mr. John Silver.
Mr. John Silver is a new member. Rec District 5 is only 1, Elizabeth Dumas Ruan. Mr. Michel.
Okay, Miss Monica Falls is listed under Rec District 8, but in the state, and the Secretary of State's website, she's listed as being Rec District 9.
Well, let's do this vote. Yeah, we didn't get to that one yet.
Okay. Sorry.
You want to open, close?
I was confused with the 9 and the 8s on the council district. Sorry about
Okay,
that.
point of information. On our GIS mapping system, they had Ms. Foster.
Let's just wait until we get to that one. if you
I'd
don't
like to
mind.
make a motion that we, I guess,
Open, close, and appoint.
open, close, and appoint Ms. Elizabeth Dumas.
Motion by
Ruin.
Mr. Darren Gidry.
Second.
Second by Mr. Jessica Domang. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries.
I'd like to make a motion that we open, close, and appoint Ms. Kim Chauvin.
I didn't get to that one yet.
Oh, I thought that,
Rec 7, Ms. Kim Chauvin.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Dirk Gidry, second by Mr. Gerald Michelle. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Okay, now we can have discussion on Monica Falls. Who's discussing Monica Falls?
I mean, you want me to repeat what I just said?
No, Miss,
No, I was just saying our GIS mapping system showed that Ms. Foss resided in Rec District 8, and that's why we reflected her as such. But I'm not sure if there's a conflict with the state.
And I know that there's a conflict in that, so I don't know what we're supposed to do about that. I just wanted to bring it up.
Some of the council districts have multiple rec districts.
I'm looking at the Secretary of State's website. It has her voting in that council, in council district, in Rec District 9.
okay, Mr. Harding.
And I'm aware of this also. She's within the voting district, District 2, but she actually pays a millage in 9. So, you know, it may be a question whether, you know what I mean, a representative of 9 who pays the taxes in 9 actually be a representative of 8. That might be a conflict. I'm pretty sure that someone in the audience might have a conflict with that.
Mr. Chairman. The resolution states that the advisory board member shall be a qualified voter within the parish. The resolution states that the resident must reside within the boundaries of the rec district. So if she does not reside within the boundaries of that particular district she wants to sit on, she can't sit on it. Those rec districts have boundaries.
Okay,
But the GIS mapping states that she's in District 8.
Rec District 8, is that what district she's in?
Right.
So that's what,
But she pays her taxes to 9.
Well, what she pays taxes is
Irrelevant.
is because you can have more than one district. If our property description for rec districts are showing that she's in 8, I think we ought to stick with our GIS system. If it's a mistake on our part, then we've had to correct something in the past. With our GIS, we can do it again. But let me ask Chris. Chris, as far as you know, are the rec districts correct on the GIS system?
as far as I know, yes.
Okay.
And I don't have a problem with it. I just wanted to bring it up, though.
all right. So, seeing no further lights, we're gonna vote on Miss Monica Falls, Rec District 8.
Motion to open, close, and appoint.
Motion
nobody
open,
already
close,
said
and
that.
appoint Mr. Gerald Michelle.
Second.
Second, Miss Jessica Domang. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries.
Yeah, I didn't have anything against her. I just wanted to make sure that that was known.
Rec District 9, we have two candidates, Julia Bork and Ed Richard.
Mr. Trosclair?
Ed Richard.
Mr. Navy? Mr. Harding?
Pretty short.
Mr. Michelle?
Miss Julia Bork.
Mr. Almadine?
Ed Richard.
Ms. Domingue?
Julia Burke.
Mr. Darren Guidry?
Ms. Julia Bork.
Mr. Danny Babin? Mr. Dirk Guidry? Mr. Chairman, there are 4 votes for Ms. Julia Bork and 5 votes for Mr. Ed Richard.
And Mr. Eddie Richard is the member. Reg 10 has only one applicant, Shawnee Marmon Burghardt. Open, close the appointment, Mr. Danny Babin, second Mr. Dirk Gidry, all in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Okay, Rec 11 has two, Catherine Broussard and Charles Kevin Champagne. Roll call, please.
Mr. Trosclair?
Kevin Champagne.
Mr. Navy? Mr. Harding?
Champagne.
Mr. Michel? Mr. Amity?
Champagne.
Ms. Domingue? Mr. Darren Gidry? Mr. Danny Babin? Mr. Dirk Gidry? Mr. Chairman, there are 0 votes for Ms. Catherine Broussard and 9 votes for Mr. Kevin Champagne.
Mr. Champagne is the representative of District 11. And now we're going to do the 4 members from the business community. We have Brandon Boudreau, Nicholas Hebert, Sherry Roach, and Michael LaRussa. So you need to vote on 4 of the 5. Brandon Boudreau, Nicholas Hebert, I'm sorry, did I call Joe? I might have called Joe too, but he's already on. So it's Brandon Boudreau, Nicholas Hebert, Sherry Roach, and Michael Russo. So we can open, close, and appoint.
Julia Bork, preferred to be appointed, but she also owns the business.
But you didn't bring it up before. You see where she put preferred to appoint her.
She doesn't have her application turned in as a business representative.
She specifically said what she said right there, and she said she preferred to be appointed.
Cheryl?
He read it, that it needs to either be an owner or an officer, or there was a third thing.
It says a proprietor, partner, or officer of a business.
Okay, so, a bank manager is none of those 3.
Just a point of order. I did check. He's president of Iberia Bank for the 4-parish region. So I don't know where we got bank manager for, but I kind of did my own research.
He's an officer. If he's a bank manager, he's an officer.
Yeah, but he's also the local area president.
Well, he qualifies.
Yeah, okay, we're making this up as we go. Thank you.
Motion by Mr. Danny Babin to open, close, and appoint. Second, Mr. Dirk Gidry. All in favor? Any opposition? Show one nay, Gerald Michel. Motion carries. Okay, moving on. Rec District 10, 1 vacancy due to resignation. Annette Burgo submits an application and resume for consideration. Open, close, and appoint Mr. Danny Babin. Second, Mr. Gerald Michel. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Homewood Board of Adjustments, 1 expiring term and 1 vacancy due to a resignation. Matthew Chotnier, current alternate member, submits an application resume. Open, close, and appoint Mr. Danny Barrett. Second, Mr. Dirk Gidry. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Veteran Memorial District, 3 expiring terms. Marine Corps.
Mr. Chairman, I guess a point of order or so, maybe I should make a motion to revisit item C. but we also have to select the chair and vice chair.
Okay, it's not on the agenda for us to do that tonight.
It's in the resolution.
But
So
it's
if we
not-
need to, I'll make a
Yeah,
motion
not
that
on
we
the agenda for
revisit
tonight. Okay, yeah, I have a
item
problem.
C, if that's what y'all want to do. It's
On the D what?
under D3, oh, in the resolution.
Oh, in the resolution. Okay, but it's not on my agenda. It's not on the printed agenda. It may be in the resolution, but it's not on the printed agenda.
I guess up to legal. Well, first of all, I'd like to make a motion, we revisit it. If you don't mind, we can at least talk about it.
Well, we're in the middle of this one. Let's finish this one, then we can go back.
No problem, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. We're voting on the Veterans Memorial District Board, the Marine Corps League, the Marine Corps, Billy Burrows submits an application resume. Legislative Delegation North, Urban Piku, expressed an interest in being reappointed. And the Parish President, North End of Coastal, President Dove, requests ratification of reappointing Ken Royston. Open, close, appoint all three. Mr. Danny Babin. Second, Mr. Darren Gidry. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Can I have a motion to revisit item 4C by Mr. Darren Gidry, second Mr. Danny Babbitt. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries.
Okay, I wanted to revisit this to see if, I guess if we're going to do chairman, if anybody has any nominations for chair or vice chair?
Mr. Babbitt.
I make a motion that we appoint Mr. Michael LaRusse as chairman.
If I have a
Do we
motion,
do them separately?
yeah, we do.
Okay, I
I
make
have
a motion that
and
we
a
appoint.
second by Dirk Gidry and Mr. Hardy. You had your light on. You want to speak?
Same motion.
Okay, I'm sorry. All in
Yeah.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries.
I'd like to make a second motion to appoint Mr. Nicholas Abear as vice chairman.
Got a motion and a second by Ms. Jessica Domingue.
No, Gerald, you can't speak from
No.
over there. If you want to speak, you
All
gotta
in
be at
favor?
the chair. Okay, I'm sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. One day, Gerald Michelle.
You can't speak from over here.
That is correct.
Okay, we're moving on. Motion to go back to regular order, Mr. Darren Gidry.
Second.
Second, Mr. John Davy. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Item 7, vacancies to various boards, committees, and commissions. Coastal Fire District, 1 expired term due to resignation. Humboldt Board of Adjustments, 1 vacancy, an alternate member. Rec District 3A, 1 vacancy due to an expiring term. Tree Board, 3 vacancies, 2 due to resignations and 1 expired term. We have announcements, no parish president here, council members. Ms. Domingue.
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody to complete your census. It's at census.gov or Count the Bayou. We have until the end of the month. Our numbers are still very, very low in Terrebonne Parish. It's just going to take a second for you to fill out your census. A family of 4 in Terrebonne Parish can bring into up to $80,000 worth of federal dollars to our parish. So filling out your census is very, very important. So please, everyone, fill out your census. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Domingue. Mr. Harding.
Yes, within Terrebonne Parish, we have a rash of violence going on and within our communities. Specifically, I'm to address some members within the community of District 2. Fair warning, we're getting tough on crime. Neighborhood watches are coming and trying to make our neighborhoods safer for the young, the middle-aged, and the elderly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Harding. And I want to expound a little bit on Ms. Domingue. It is of utmost importance that we express how important it is to our family, friends, and neighbors to fill out these census forms. I mean, that means a lot to Terrebonne Parish, the state of Louisiana. And also want to remind everyone to keep all our veterans, law enforcement, first responders, and firefighters in your thoughts and prayers daily. Thank you.
Steve, I skipped, I'm sorry.
Mr.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just want to, for the people in western Louisiana, I want to thank everyone, because I know we have all participated in one way or the other. I know Ms. Domingue went last weekend. Our own Dean Swesher is going and cooked. HPD went today to DeQuincy and Westlake to cook, and there's some more people going tomorrow. When the HPD texted me this afternoon, the people they served, that was the first hot meal they've had since the storm. They've had sandwiches, they've had food. This is the first hot meal that they had. So we need to dig down deep in our hearts, and if we can't go participate, at least let's participate with some donations. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Babin. Monthly engineer reports. As per Mr. Dirk Gidry, second Mr. Darren Gidry, all in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Motion adjourned, Mr. Darren Gidry, second Ms. Jessica Domingue, all in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. We adjourn. Good night, ladies and gentlemen.